Afternoon, everybody. Guess who's just worked out how to link the computer to the television screen? That's me.
Well, here we are. Good morning, everybody. Oh, hang on a second.
Oh, that's
I think
cool.
it is. I think it's still just morning.
Anyway, not going to do this just
Here we
to show
are
you
at
that.
a
Hang
place
on.
called Fradley. Fradley as the Laughing Duck.
Right. Just to answer some questions, and some people have asked, well, quite often people say, how much battery has Woody got? And how much amperage has the batteries got? And what's the voltage and all that sort of thing. So I've done this little gadget, which I hope you can see. I'm going to have to check the video in a minute. But yeah, here we have Woody's setup. Woody has a 48 volt battery. They'll actually charge up to 54.5 volts. They are made slightly bigger than 48 volt batteries, but are actually used as 48 volt batteries. There are 4 of them, and they're 20 amps each, which means I have a reserve of 20 amps to draw on. Excuse me, I've got a bit of a croaky throat today. But the watt hours is the fuel that's in the storage tank, which is called a battery. I'd have to draw an analogy here between mobility scooter, electric, with a battery, and a car, petrol, that has a petrol tank. When you put fuel into your car, you put, say, 10 gallons in, and if it does 10 miles to the gallon, then you've got a 100-mile range for the car. A car's fuel reserve is called a petrol tank, and the fuel that you put in it is petrol, and you put it in litres. A mobility scooter's tank is the battery, and what you put in it are watt hours. It's not as catchy as petrol, is it? But nevertheless, the 2 words watt hours is the fuel that's inside the battery. To find out how much fuel you've got, as a way of understanding how these things work, you take the battery's voltage, which in this case is 48 volts, and you times it by the amps, and that will give you, for a lithium ion battery, that will give you a total of 3,000. All the best plans go awry occasionally. I just have to make sure I keep moving this. So you'll have in total 3,840 watt hours in your battery fuel tank. Now, cars do miles to the gallon. Mobility scooters do watt hours to the mile. It's a bit like saying cars are so thirsty they use so many gallons per mile. They don't. But a mobility scooter burns watt hours, and it burns so many watt hours per mile. This has an effect on the performance of the scooter. Oh, I'm just twiddling around here. So this little thing that I've done on a spreadsheet shows that 48 volts, 80 amps, 3,840 watt hours in total, but a lithium battery cannot give you all the watt hours it has. It will damage the lithium battery. So inside the lithium battery is a thing called a BMS, a battery management system, and it will cut the power before the voltage drops too low and damages the battery. So what you have available in a lithium battery from 3,840, you can only use the available watt hours, and the available watt hours are 3,072, just over 3,000. Now then, on that side, which I hope you can see, how far does Woody go? Well, it all depends, because when you're on your scooter, the weight of anything you're carrying, the weight of you, or the weight of me in my case, the weight of anything you've got in baskets and things, all make a difference. And the weight of the scooter and the weight of the batteries. Weight is king. And the heavier the scooter is, the more watt hours you will use. The faster you go, the more watt hours you will use, and the range will be less. The sort of surface that you're riding around on will have an effect. It's called rolling resistance. So a gravel path that's loose gravel will offer more rolling resistance than a smooth tarmac pavement, and that will affect the watt hours that you use. So on this little graph, if I drive or ride very carefully, I will use approximately 50 watt hours per mile. And if you divide that into the available watt hours, that will give me a range, theoretically, of 61.44 miles total. But if I drive with care and not extremely carefully, that'll drop, or I'll use more watt hours, 60 watt hours, which will drop the range to 51.2 in this case. And that green band there is what I call the real world, where I can reasonably expect just driving normally. And I should use, on Woody, I should burn about 70 watt hours per mile. Go back on. There we go. So if I was on a trail and using the speed, that would increase the watt hours being used up to 80, and I'd only get 38 miles range. Off-road, I would be burning something like 90 watt hours per mile, quite significantly more, and that would reduce the range even further to 34 miles. And if I was having an extremely enjoyable day and doing what I often do, which is hard off-road in power level 2, I'd be burning 100 watt hours plus per mile, and the range would be dropped to just 30 miles. I hope that's fairly clear. So you can see you can't say with an electric scooter how many miles range it's got. There are so many factors that affect how far it'll go. The biggest one is always going to be weight. Weight is king. Next is how you drive it, whether you're going to be putting the handles or throttle on it or causing it to accelerate under full power all the time. You'll just burn up more and more watt hours. If I baby Woody around very carefully, I could possibly get 60 miles range out of it. Not going to happen. But let's just have a look at my friend's scooter. And if I can make this move up, there we go. I've done this for a comparison with my friend's scooter. He's got, I hate to name names, but he's got a Drive Sport Rider. It's a 24 volt system, and he's got 75 amp hour batteries. Oh no, he hasn't. He's got bigger batteries. Let me just change that. I happen to know he's got 100 amp batteries in it. Right, that changes everything. Now, 24 volts times 100 is 2,400 volts he's got in his tank called the battery. So he's got 2,400 watt hours of fuel in the tank, in the battery. The available watt hours, because this is a lead acid battery, he's got good lead acid battery. It's a sealed unit, fairly modern. But even so, he's only got available 1,440 watt hours. A lead acid battery, you can only count on about half of the total figure, because if you drop the voltage of a lead acid battery below 10 volts, you seriously damage the battery and shorten its life. Not a good thing. So you always try to keep up above. The Sport Rider, if driven very carefully, will use about 50 watt hours per mile, and that gives a range of 28.8 miles, so nearly 30 miles, which is about consistent with what the manufacturers say. I can just hear them now, the clickety-clack on the keyboards as people say, the manufacturers actually say to do 35. Well, the manufacturers probably tie it to a post and it goes around in a circle on a very smooth surface without touching it at all. You might get 35 miles. Anyway, with care, you should get 24 miles, but be using about 60 watt hours a mile. And in the real world, burning up 70 watt hours per mile, 21 miles range is realistic for what you'd expect. But if he goes off-road, he can severely drop that down to 14, 16 miles range. Lead acid batteries are big, heavy things. If he was to take out the lead acid batteries and put in lithium ion, he would have dramatically different figures. So there we go. If this scooter was a different scooter and it was, say, a 36 volt and he had 50 amp batteries in it, the battery's ampage is less, but the voltage is more. And what he's got available is just over 1,000 watt hours of fuel. And if he's very careful, then you're looking at a scooter that'll do 20 odd miles. Does that look good? These figures are not dramatically accurate. I've done this as a sort of illustration to show the variance that you get by the different modes that you drive, carefully, with care, real world, trail, off-road, or hard off-road, which is what I like. But let me just go back to the lithium ion. The batteries I've got in Woody are 4 20 amp batteries, making 80. For a little bit more money, the size difference isn't dramatically different. I could put 4 40 amp batteries in, readily available, and it would make a bit of difference to the weight, but not much. If I was to take out the 20 amp batteries and sell them, lithium-ion batteries are getting a bit cheaper, if you've noticed. And if I was to put 40 amp batteries in there, that would be 160 amps available. Look at the mileage. If in the real world of just ordinary driving, Woody would suddenly be able to do 88 miles-ish on a charge. Fantastic range. That would mean I would be able to go away from home 44 miles away. That's huge. And when the batteries, the first set run out, I'll switch them back over to the other set, and I know I could do 44 miles all the way back home. If I was to be very careful, the range goes up to 123 miles on a charge for this scooter. That's not going to happen. The batteries are available. I could easily buy 40 amp 48 volt batteries and put them into Woody. But I'm not going to. I'm hanging on to see what happens with solid state batteries. But the hopes are that if solid state batteries become available, they'll perform like these 40 amp batteries, and Woody will go to being 100 mile plus range. Great. Anyway, I hope you found that of interest. Nothing else has changed with Woody, still waiting for the motors. I have had an email to say that production is delayed. So you'll have the pleasure of some more workshop videos. Oh dear. I hope it's a pleasure. But there we go, folks. I hope that you found that of some interest. And if you go onto YouTube and search Woody, you'll find Joe Turner and Woody, and that's me, a mechanic Chase.
Wow.
I wish I was there now. But without any wheels on the back, it's a bit difficult.
Remember the rules, small dogs first.
So,
Yeah.
hope you've enjoyed that, folks. Please
Right.
subscribe.